Welcome to Bilingual Book Buddies podcast and webcast. Bilingual Book Buddies is dedicated to promoting bilingual books for children and sharing insights from authors, illustrators, editors, agents, and anyone involved in bringing these stories to life. I'm Claudia Sloan. I'm one of 3 co-hosts of Bilingual Book Buddies. I'm an artist who also writes and illustrates books for children. I focus on themes of wellness, Latinx culture, life adventures, modern fairy tales, STEAM, and sports. In fact, my latest picture book is a sports adventure, and it was a dream come true because I got to collaborate with my favorite professional basketball teams, the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. And I have the pleasure to welcome my co-hosts, Alicia Salazar and Silvia Lopez.
Hello, I'm Silvia Lopez. I am a bilingual Cuban-American author living in Miami. I was a school librarian for many years before turning my lifelong love of books into writing for children. I have published about 20 picture books, mostly bilingual, which include nonfiction, folktale retellings, easy readers, and biographies. My books have received the Florida Book Award twice and have earned starred reviews. I will be publishing 3 more picture books and 1 more easy reader in 2026 and 2027.
Hello, I am Alicia Salazar, children's book author and former teacher. I've written bilingual and English language books for young readers, including the Camila the Star series, Trolls, Loch Ness Monster, and my recently published picture book, Cascarones, An Easter Surprise. I'm passionate about stories that celebrate culture, spark imagination, and encourage kids to express themselves, especially in more than one language.
Thank you all for your introductions. And now I have the pleasure to introduce our guest today. Nuestra invitada de hoy es la fabulosa Lulu Delacre. Our guest today is the fabulous, the amazing Lulu Delacre. Lulu is a children's literature finalist. She has illustrated over 40 books. Most of them she wrote herself. The New York Times bestselling artist and Pura Belpré Honor hails from Puerto Rico. Her Latino heritage is at the center of her work. Her many titles include Arroz con leche, popular songs and rhymes from Latin America, and prints for over 35 years. Among her latest works are The Art of Turning Pages by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Cool Green, Amazing Remarkable Trees, recognized by the National Council of Teachers of English. Lulu loves to learn new things, travel the world, garden, and cook. This October, Lulu is releasing Rafi and Rosie Menu, Rafi y Rosie Menu, the final title of the Junior Library Guild Award-winning beginners series. So welcome, Lulu.
Encantada de estar con ustedes, chicas. Welcome, everyone. Alicia, Claudia y Silvia.
Bienvenida, bienvenida. Y me toca a mí la primera pregunta. I get to ask the first question. You became an artist before you became a writer. Can you please tell us about your artist journey and how it brought you into picture books? Nos va a platicar, por favor, sobre su trayectoria y cómo llegó hasta el mundo de escribir los libros.
Es exactamente cierto. My first love, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And ever since I was a little girl, my passion was to draw. I knew I would become a writer. I knew I would become an artist. I did not know what kind of artist. I discovered, let me backtrack. The very first person that nurtured that love of art was actually my grandma. She used to keep every single drawing that I would draw in her house while she was babysitting me while my parents were at work. And she would give me pieces of paper and she would put some classical music, which she loved, and I would just draw and draw until the paper was, done with. So one day I discovered that she had piled up a whole, all my drawings were all piled up, and that pile was taller than myself inside her closet. What happened with that pile of drawings? Well, actually, I don't have any of those. I do have the memory of the pride that I felt when I saw that my grandmother thought those drawings were good enough to keep and to pile up over many months. I don't know how many months they were, because as you know, I was 4, so I don't have that clear recollection. I do have the recollection of the feeling of pride, and knowing at that point, not only at that point, but a little bit later also, the conclusion of my passion, that was my path, was going to be that. Later on, when my kindergarten teacher, I overheard her tell my parents at a parents-teacher conference, you know, Lulu is going to be an artist. I looked up, an artist, me, and here I am. I knew I would become an artist. From the drawings that I make as a young person,
Ooh,
I
we
only have
definitely
this
want to
one.
see those. Oh my God, these are some of your early drawings.
Este lo hice cuando tenía apenas 17 años y era una clase en donde yo tenía modelos, I had models, and I had to draw in pen and ink, which is not easy when you are drawing from life with a model. I was, in high school, and at that point in high school in Puerto Rico, I knew I wanted to become an artist. I did not know what kind of artist. That came later. So
that is beautiful. Thank you for showing us your early work. Muchas gracias por mostrarnos los dibujos antiguos.
Alicia?
Siguiente pregunta. ¿Cuál fue el primer libro de cuentos bilingüe que publicaste y qué fue escrito e ilustrado por ti? ¿Y puedes contarnos cómo fue esa experiencia y cómo te sentiste al respecto?
Thank you very much for the question, Alicia. Una pregunta muy buena. But I want to go back to something that I didn't say, because I think it's important for any, I don't know who is going to listen to this, but any child or any aspiring artist that wants to become a writer, because I became a writer by the way of art. I think this is important. For me, it started with a sketch. And I wanted, before that book that I'm going to get into, the first bilingual book that I wrote, I wanted to say how I got to that book is because I realized that I could be the creator of the whole book, not only the pictorial part. Me di cuenta que podía hacer todo una vez que ya estaba aquí en Estados Unidos y podía tener una carrera como ilustradora de libros infantiles. I, as an aspiring, I had a career already as an illustrator of children's books when I realized that I could do both. And that happened because I started to do sketches. And the sketches, I'm going to show you very old sketches. These sketches go back to, I don't know whether you've seen them. So these sketches go back to 1982. And you see an elephant. You know why you see an elephant? Because although I grew up in Puerto Rico, I was studying children's books in the public libraries. And I noticed what, I went there because I wanted to get into the field. And I noticed what was popular. That led to editors and art directors tell me, you know what, go write a story for this character. And that became my very first book as a writer and an illustrator.
Alexander.
That opened up the possibility of me thinking of myself as an author-illustrator. I didn't know that I could do it. Why? ¿Por qué? Porque todavía yo sueño en español. La lengua natal es el español. So thinking and dreaming in Spanish, speaking Spanish all day long, I never thought first that I could write because I'm an artist. I consider myself an artist. And second, I didn't know that I could write in English of all languages, a language that for me was Spanish is my first language and English was really, really far behind. In Puerto Rico, uno aprende el inglés una vez al día en una clase de 1 hora. Eso es todo. So the only class that I had in English was English class. Everything else was in Spanish. So for me, English was really a second language. But this book made me an author. And then I'm going to answer Alicia's question. Este fue el primer libro que yo hice en bilingüe, en español y inglés. ¿Por qué? Y este libro, Benito, it's really faded because it literally has now 35 years. It's the first printing. So it's a very old copy, and that is why it's all faded. Arroz con Leche, Popular Songs from Latin America got published because back then I was working, the series of Nathan and Nicholas Alexander books. I was working with that series with an editor at Scholastic. And with the birth of my firstborn, I realized, a song rose to my lips. When I held her in my arms, a song rose to my lips, and I started singing a lullaby from the lullaby that my mother sang to me, that my grandmother sang to my mom. It just rose to my lips. I didn't know that I had this in my brain. And all of a sudden, me, who had already illustrated, remember I started as an illustrator, illustrated books, Mother Goose Rhymes, for the American mother that uses that with her children, or used to use that with her children. I knew that there were so many books that cater for these English-speaking children, and none for children like my own daughters. No había nada en el mercado que tuviese todas las canciones que yo recordaba de mi infancia, los juegos que yo jugaba con mis amigas. Arroz con leche se quiere casar. Eso no existía. Estamos hablando, este libro se publicó in 1989. So it's been a long while. The book was published, Alicia, porque bueno, y entonces, por supuesto, le sigue Arrorró, mi niño. Este fue el primero, pero después me di cuenta que esto hacía falta, y entonces yo hice otro libro después que se llamaba Arrorró, mi niño, que también es another collection of songs and lullabies. But the importance of such books is that they really touch the book Arroz con Leche, like Arrorró, mi niño. They sell because they touch the core of who we are as Latinos. They go back to the memories, las memorias de nuestra infancia, lo que nuestras madres y abuelas nos cantaban, los juegos de la infancia. They go back to that core that is within us, that ties us to our heritage and the lands of our ancestors. And that's why these books, that was a very long answer to which one was the first bilingual book.
No, it's a beautiful answer, Lulu, and I'm showing some of the illustrations of some of the other books, like
Las Navidades.
Como el primero, Las Navidades, que es
Villancicos y aguinaldos.
Villancicos, y está también, tenemos, bueno, está este también.
Shake It Morena.
Shake It Morena.
It's all folklore from Puerto Rico, and the author there is actually Carmen Belñegran. And it was a delight to illustrate that because, I just flew back with my imagination to Puerto Rico, and everything is set there. So yes, these songs and rhymes are a core of who we are, and it is through these gentle songs like in Arrorró, mi niño, that you teach the love of language to children, and the love of language, of rhyme, of that love of language turns that reader, turns that listener into an avid reader later on. And that is the key to these books. Sorry, very long answer.
No.
Una larga respuesta.
La respuesta larga, pero con
perfecta.
Muy buen contenido. De hecho, ese de Arroz con Leche, fue uno de los primeros que yo leí de usted, porque pues precisamente por la familiaridad con las canciones, Arroz con Leche, o sea, las cantábamos de chiquitos, y luego verlas en un libro fue, o sea, algo fascinante, ¿no? Así es que, no, muchas gracias por darnos esa respuesta tan larga. Lo que larga está bien.
Muy lindo, muy lindo. Yo también le canté a mis niños, después le canté a los nietos las mismas canciones, lo mismo, de estaba la pájara pinta sentada en su árbol de limón. Y tengo todavía el sillón original, todavía lo tengo, ya se ha recubierto como 4 veces ya el sillón, donde yo daba sillón y sillón y sillón, y yo creo que a veces ni se dormían oyéndome. Se escu- por escucharme no se dormían, así que it was a little bit of a mistake, porque les gustaban las canciones y yo seguía cantando y no se dormían. Bueno, ok, tengo una próxima pregunta for you, Lulu. Do you usually write your books in English first? En español, en inglés primero, and then translate to Spanish, or the other way around, o al mismo tiempo, simultáneamente?
It depends on the book. I've done now, I'm the illustrator of 45 books now, because I count every single Spanish version as
a book.
its own book, porque yo trabajo en la versión de español. So for me, you know, when I do Rafi y Rosy and Rafi and Rosy, those are two books, not one. Okay, por ejemplo, Olinguito, de la A a la Z, es un libro totalmente bilingüe, pero este libro, this book, Unveiling the Cloud Forest, Olinguito from A to Z, Unveiling the Cloud Forest, is a book that started, it features the Spanish language, the alphabet in Spanish, because back then when this book was published, it was published because I realized there were 17,000 books, alphabet books in English, and 17 in Spanish here in the USA. And I said, I mean, what? Why? After the what? And then how am I going to feel this need? And of course, it just happened that I read this article. I'm not going to go into the whole bit, but in here, it was really a poem that describes the cloud forest and in Colombia and Ecuador, specifically in Ecuador, where the Olinguito lives, and describes the cloud forest. And in doing so, describes also the flora, the fauna that coexist with the Olinguito and the search of the zoologists into the cloud forest, everything in Spanish. It is translated lyrically under the Spanish text. This is entirely nonfiction, by the way, because I do fiction like some of you, like Claudia. I do fiction, nonfiction, and you can see that it is translated into English, but the English language is not the language that drives the book. Alto allá arriba en los Andes brilla un bosque bordado de bromelias. High, high up in the Andes blooms a brilliant forest embroidered with bromelias. So the letter featuring each page is not repeated as many times in the English language as in the Spanish. So, for example, that book, first the Spanish. But there are other books, like, for example, the Rafi and Rosy books, which I have the last one coming, just came out. All of the Rafi and Rosy books, I had to first I had to do the English and then the Spanish. But again, the Spanish for me is not a translation, is an original version. Why I had to do the English first? Because my editor is an English-speaking editor, so it needed to be in English first. That is why. So it really depends on the book. I've learned how to do it either way, going back and forth. So it really depends on the book. Some books are entirely like this one, Veo Veo, is actually another book that started with sketches. Veo Veo, I See You. This book mixes both, and it has two voices. In this book is different than all of my other books because either I have two versions, Espanol, English, or I have bilingual, entirely bilingual, like Arrorró, mi niño, like Arroz con leche. They are entirely bilingual, both languages at the same time. And here, it is a different kind of book because the mother only speaks Spanish, the children only speak English, reflecting a little bit of what goes on in many households here in the US. So, but it's done in such a way that even if you speak one of the languages, you can pick up on the other. So it really depends on the book.
Thank you. What a wonderful answer. Thank you very much.
Yes, and when I was reading Veo Veo, I was actually admiring the fact that regardless of which language you're stronger with, you still can follow along. And yeah, it's done beautifully. So thank you for explaining on that. Now let's dive a little deeper into your illustration. You have multiple styles, I would say. I mean, and of course,
Yes.
you're so prolific. So what is your what is your process like? How do you choose which style to use for each manuscript? And tell us a little bit about that.
Gracias por la pregunta, Claudia. It's an excellent question. And the driver of which style for the book is really the manuscript, even when I'm the author. Because not all manuscripts require the same art. The same way that, let's see, for example, in Olinguito, I'm going to pick up this one, or Cool Green, Verde Fresco. These are nonfiction books, and actually I chose a specific style that is very graphic, but at the same time will tell you exactly how certain things look. Like if you look at this frog, sapo y salamandra, both the toad and the salamander are exactly what they look like, but they are very graphic at the same time. Those are done with acrylic and collage.
Well, and I noticed like in Verde Fresco, you even included some real life pieces. So when I was looking at the sequoia tree, for example, the sequoia tree, for example,
Yes.
there are some pieces of collage o collage pieces of tree, pedacitos del árbol.
Yes, estos especímenes los busqué. That happens both in Olinguito and in Cool Green, because in Olinguito I wanted to bring a little bit of the cloud forest to the reader. Quería a través de hacer collage de las mismas hojas, de los diferentes flores, por ejemplo, del secuoya que estás mostrando ahí, Claudia. Eso viene específicamente de un Red Coast, de un Coast Redwood, el que estoy mostrando en ese libro. Y, por ejemplo, en el baobab, en ese mismo libro, tú abres el baobab y I had a friend from Africa sent me specimens of the baobab in Africa and the flower in order for me to be able to apply them to the illustration. Why? Because I really go beyond what is required. I want to bring an experience, layered experience into the illustration. The illustration is not only there to support at least in my mind, to support the text, but is there to add to it, to add a dimension layer that you wouldn't have just reading the text. Por eso es que tengo los diferentes estilos y definitivamente hago de todo y me encanta. I also love the challenge. I adore challenging myself and finding just the right kind of illustration for that manuscript, even if I'm the author of the book.
Claudia, I'm going to jump into the question for a moment because I'm going to expand un poquito, voy a expandir un poquito lo que está diciendo Lulu.
Claro.
Yo tengo un libro aquí del año 1997 que se llama Los zapaticos de rosa, es el poema de José Martí. Dos historias aquí, yo tengo, este es el de la biblioteca, porque el original mío, que era para mis niños, ya se lo mandé a mis nietos, así que ya ese no está en mi casa. Tuve que sacar otra copia de la biblioteca. I had to get another one from the library. Este es Los zapaticos de rosa de José Martí. No sé si las muchachitas, si Alicia y Claudia lo conocen. Este es un poema muy famoso que me lo hicieron memorizar a mí en tercer grado. Y todavía me lo sé de cabo a rabo. Pero lo que quería hablar, precioso. Hay sol bueno y mar de espuma y arena fina y Pilar quiere salir a estrenar su sombrerito de pluma. Hasta la última estrofa. Y lo paraban a uno delante de la clase ahí a recitarlo desde el principio al final. Pero lo más importante que quería decir sobre este libro es que al final del libro, at the end of this book, Lulu has una nota de la ilustradora. Okay, this is a note from the author or from the illustrator, not the author in this case, because the author was José Martí. She was the illustrator. But I found this note so interesting because she says in this note that she did the research to make the illustrations for this poem. She did the research on José Martí and that he was inspired by the paintings of Winslow Homer.
Ujú.
So she studied Winslow Homer, who was contemporáneo de Martí, porque los dos vivieron en Nueva York al mismo tiempo. Y parece que Martí se inspiró para escribir esto un cuadro de Winslow Homer. Y Lulu se inspiró para hacer las preciosas ilustraciones estas que están bellísimas, bellísimas. Siempre las encontré tan lindas.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. It is a
Tan
cycle.
hermosas. Wow.
One artist depending on another artist, one writer depending on another artist, the three of them working together a través de las
El
décadas.
tiempo. Ujú.
Porque
Sí.
no fueron contemporáneos, por supuesto. Ellos sí, pero Lulu no. Y entonces es la pregunta de cómo ella se inspira, permiso, cómo ella se inspira y qué es lo que, qué es lo que le ayuda a ella para choose the illustrations for each book. Estamos hablando Spanglish big time here.
Sí.
So she can choose the illustrations for each book. And that author's note in the back tells you the process that she goes through to make sure that the illustrations are very faithful to the story, que son completamente de acuerdo con como es el cuento, como es el poema en ese caso. Así que quería añadir eso nada más, Claudia.
Y en ese
Muchas.
caso, una cosita, en ese caso, en los zapaticos de rosa son acuarelas. Y son acuarelas porque el poema mismo es tan
Una
bello,
acuarela.
es una acuarela.
Es un poema muy sutil, muy suavecito, y así están las ilustraciones, muy suavecitas, muy pastel, very pastel, soft colors, que es lo que inspira el poema. Así que por eso quise expandir un poquitico la pregunta y la
No,
respuesta.
muchas gracias por expandir, porque me encanta que estás cubriendo el tema, porque estamos viendo su ilustración acrílico, acuarela, estamos viendo pencil and ink, estamos viendo collage, o sea, tiene una variedad muy amplia, ¿verdad? De estilo y también de conocimiento de los diferentes medios que usar. There's another beautiful, beautiful
Beautiful,
illustration right there.
beautiful, beautiful. I love
Completely
that
different style
illustration.
too.
Yes, this is a chapter book, basically a chapter book de Hilda Pereira, who is very well known author, and I love the illustrations in this book. I like her stories, but I love the illustrations in this book.
Gracias.
So
Beautiful. You are absolutely amazing. I mean, how you managed to work with all these different styles. And the reason I was eager to ask this question is because oftentimes, especially for illustrators who are just either new or just starting out, they often hear these comments from webinars and so forth, like, no, you have to focus on just one single style, and you don't show in your portfolio that you can do other things and so and so. And you break the mold on that one because you say, no, look at all my talents, look at all the different things that I can do. And in your case, obviously, you're doing them amazingly well. And I think that overall, that might be the key. If you're just starting, maybe learn one, get really good at it, and then maybe learn another one and so and so. But I thank you for sharing that it's okay if you like or enjoy multiple styles. Just in your case, focus on the story and see what makes the most sense for the story.
Claudia, I'm going to bring another one up before we go to Alicia's because
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes, please do.
I'm sorry because remember I have all the books here, practically all the books.
Hey, we
But
warned her
before
that
we
we
go,
were all fans, so le dijimos que
sí,
éramos fans.
somos fanáticas. Antes de ir con Alicia, porque ya la próxima pregunta cambia el tema, pero este es el mismo tema. Este es el libro escrito por Lucía González y es la
Sí.
historia de Pura Belpré. Y la historia de Pura Belpré, que fue bibliotecaria en Nueva York, que abrió las puertas de la biblioteca a los niños latinos del barrio puertorriqueño hispano de Nueva York por primera vez. Ella hizo títeres, hacía cuentos, hacía celebraciones y todo para la población latina que no tenía ese recurso en más ningún lugar. Pero hay una cosa muy importante en este libro que se los voy a enseñar y ahora Lulu se los va a explicar también, porque yo estaba viendo el libro y yo conozco a Lucía González un poco, estoy viendo este libro tan lindo y veo aquí unas páginas de periódico. ¿Ven esas páginas de periódico? ¿Las ven ahí? A ver si las pueden ver. ¿Ven?
Sí, sí, sí,
Esas son
claro.
unas páginas de periódico. Y yo decía, pero ¿qué rayos hace esas páginas de periódicos metidas aquí? En cada una de las ilustraciones, o casi todas de las ilustraciones, muchas de ellas, hay pedacitos de páginas de periódico. Y ella explica al final, ¿verdad, Lulu? Yo voy a dejar que Lulu explique por qué esas páginas están ahí y qué significado tienen, porque expande mucho la pregunta que le preguntamos. How do you choose your style for each manuscript? What do you include in each manuscript? And in this book, what she includes is amazing because it's so subtle, está tan suavecito que si uno no lo mira y no se lee la nota del autor y de la ilustradora atrás,
No sabes por qué hay
no
páginas de
saben por qué están
periódico.
esas páginas de
Yeah,
periódico. Así
they
que
are
vamos a dejar que
yellow,
Lulu lo
yellow
explique.
newspaper pages from the New York Times of the 6th of January of 1930, I think it is. And I secured that I got my hands into this specific newspaper because of in the story that Lucia Gonzalez retells about Pura Belpré. It is about one of the celebrations, well, the celebration that Pura Belpré did, Three Kings Day, el Día de los Reyes, en la biblioteca. Y por eso se llama la velita de los cuentos, porque la velita de los cuentos, cada vez que ella iba a empezar el cuento, ella prendía la velita. At that, because it happens, it is celebrating the Epiphany, then I wanted, no, it's the 6th of January, 6th of January of 1930, if I'm not mistaken. And the date, I don't have the book right here in front of me, but the date, it is actually in one of the collage. I secured a real paper of that exact date. That's why all the pages are yellow. And I was very careful as to add collage that would extend what was going on in each illustration. And I do that also in books because I know that kids love to find things. Readers like to find things. And when you tell at the end, there are pieces of newspaper that tell you a little bit about the times that things were happening. There's actually in that illustration that you're showing right now, Sylvia, there is a list of the boats coming from Puerto Rico entering the New York harbor. There's a whole list. Now, if you don't look, you won't see. You have to search for it. But that's what enriches, again, layered. For me, work has to be layered in order the illustration needs to imbue the manuscript with a certain richness.
Precioso, una idea preciosa, preciosa. Con
Bueno, pero no
razón el
podemos estar
libro.
todo el tiempo hablando de esto.
No, pero está muy bonita y muy distinta y muy distintiva. Bueno, vamos a la próxima pregunta.
Ok, la próxima pregunta. ¿Qué recuerdos especiales o eventos de tu vida han influido más en tus libros? What special memories or life events have had the most influence in your books?
The island of Puerto Rico. Growing up in the island, the language, the culture, the legends, the folktales, the songs, the rhymes, the food, the music, the beauty of the people, and my childhood memories. That is really what inspires the work that I do today. I started the line of books that I do now as soon as my daughters were born, because I knew there was a need. There's still a need, but now there's many more of us writing for the children that need to see themselves in the pages of the books. But it's Puerto Rico.
That's wonderful. Okay, and I have the last question. You have been a very prolific and successful, you have had a very prolific and successful career as an award-winning author-illustrator of children's books. What would you say has been the biggest challenge to get there, and how did you overcome it? What was a challenge to get to where you are now?
My challenge was having to write in English. That's a very simple answer to the question. It was a challenge, but like in my book, The Gigante Masquerader, in the very last page, the mother says, Mama says to Ramon, you know, Ramon, persistence is the key to your dreams. And that was the key, being persistent. Listening to the editors, going over things until every single word is right. And I'm so happy that this is out.
So are we. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lulu. That's a great answer. I think
that takes us
everybody
to the
has
next question.
right, and everybody has different different challenges, but certainly when your first language is not English, that is something that that you have overcome. Even though you are a wonderful illustrator, but when you write your own books, then that has become a challenge. Thank you. Okay.
Well, that takes us to the next question. Just last week, you launched your latest title of the series, Rafi and Rosy Coqui. ¡Yay! Yo nomás tengo uno aquí. Congratulations, felicidades. Estás lanzando su último libro de las series de Rafi y Rosy Coqui. So my understanding is that this is your fifth title in the series and is also the last one. Can you tell us about this series? How and when did it start? How do you feel about it ending? And what have you learned from it? Esta es una pregunta larga. ¿Qué nos puedes decir sobre esta serie? ¿Cómo y cuándo empezó? ¿Cómo se siente sobre el hecho de que ya se va a terminar? ¿Y qué ha aprendido de ella?
Bueno, the answer is, how did it start? Like many other of my books, in a sketchbook. So you can see Rafi and Rosy in the very first sketches back in 2002, I think it was. And why I, had my sketchbook with me, I was waiting for my daughter to come out of class, and I started sketching. And remember, I told you that Puerto Rico is inspiration? I said, how about characters based on the Coqui Tree Frog? Why the Coqui Tree Frog? Because as soon as you go to sleep in the island of Puerto Rico, you listen to the lullaby of El Coqui. Coqui, Coqui, Coqui. So I said, why not characters based on the Coqui? And I started drawing. Out of these drawings, the characters were born. Rafi became the older brother, the know-it-all brother, the brother that wants to trick his little sister and always has an answer for every single thing, who likes to show off how much he knows and how he can do things that the little sister Rosy cannot, because he's older, obviously. And Rosy became the adorable little sister who is in awe of her brother, but who has a mind of her own and teaches lessons to Rafi. And then literally began in a sketchbook. By drawing them, I learned who they were, and I drew them doing many things until I thought initially it was going to be a picture book, a standalone picture book with the very first story, which is based on something that happened to me. And my dad teaching me the amazing thing about having sand, magic fingers is the very first story, having sand in the island that is gray, and then showing me the magic trick of making that gray sand into two piles of black and white. Of course, it's not magic, it's science. But for me, it was magic when he showed me that little kernel of a childhood memory made it into the first story. An editor guided me into making this instead of a picture book. First, it was published as an I Can Read book by HarperCollins. And then I realized that kids like this sibling relationship. They really connected to the siblings. And I'll say, in part, is because it's based on a true sibling relationship, the one between my husband and his sister. So, stories are embedded into anecdotes from childhood of my husband, anecdotes from my childhood are embedded into the stories of these two siblings. But it's truly about the relationship of the siblings, and kids connect very well. So how I made it into a series was simply by once I had the characters, I would change a little bit of the setting. And I did, let's place Rafi and Rosy during Carnival in Ponce. Let's have them solve a problem. Let's let the plot play out. And that's what happened with number 2. And number 3 was pirates. Did you know that the last pirate of the Caribbean was from Puerto Rico? Well, Rosy didn't know either until Rafi made sure that she would know. Then I placed them in Luis Aldea in Puerto Rico, music, where, music, I told you, the island is inspiration for me. The music of the island, the bomba, salsa, plena, they are genres that are full of beauty, of joy. So, and then, of course, that came to why the last one? Why are we closing this series? I'm gonna reveal here. In part, we're closing the series because I have dealt in the series with many of the aspects of the beautiful island. Not all, but many, like the beautiful nature, the history, some of the history, the music traditions, like in Carnival. And now, of course, I had to close with food. Who doesn't like food? And we end with food. Rafi y Rosy menu, Rafi Rosy menu. And again, they get into trouble. They need to get out of trouble. There's the back and forth between the siblings. And in here, recipes are included. The very first book was published in 2004. And we're closing now 21 years later. And in part, we're closing because my editor retired. She literally, I took her out of retirement to edit this one.
Oh, well, I mean,
So that's a testament of a good editor.
Yes.
yeah, and they've had an amazing life. For the people that don't know about him, each book has 3 or 4 stories in it. So there's a lot of material in each individual book. Cada libro tiene 4 o 5 cuentos.
Tiene tres cuentos.
Right?
Each book has 3 stories. And I'm glad that you mentioned this, Claudia, because the beauty of the stories, they are beginner readers. And you hook them with characters that they want to know more about. And then once they know the characters, once they know how they go back and forth, then they want to know what's the next story. The stories are independent of each other. So when you go into Rafi and Rosy music, you don't have to, although I wrote Rafi and Rosy first, you could read this one first, and you could read Rafi and Rosy music, and then read Rafi and Rosy. You don't have to read this one first. All books are independent of each other, and all stories, except in Rafi y Rosy menu, because this is the last one, that's what I made the exception. But all stories in all the previous 4 books, Rafi, Rosy, Música, Piratas y Carnival, all 3 stories in each book are independent of each other. And that makes that reader, that beginner reader, want to know more. And them feel confident in what they're reading. And that is how you get to have readers that later on will read Sandra Cisneros or, wonderful, or Pam Muñoz Ryan, Esperanza Rising. They will get to that point once they are fluent. First, you have to have them reading fluently. And why not doing this with books that hook them because they are fun to read, where they can relate to the relationship of the siblings, where by reading them, they learn about Puerto Rico without even noticing it. Right. And, I think that's the beauty of them. And this, I have to tell this before we go. This one is 3 stories that are woven in together, because in the beginning it's about food. And menu, because of course, every single menu has an appetizer, arañitas, crunchy, salty, delicious arañitas, deliciosas, little spiders, Rosy would call them, little spiders. They are not spiders, they are arañitas. If you want to know what they are, get the book and get the recipes included. And then first course is arañita. Of course, there's a main course, pasteles puertorriqueños. Los pasteles puertorriqueños is a very time-consuming dish. And Rafi and Rosie starts the book by going to visit Abuela in Guabate to help her make 60 pasteles puertorriqueños for an order, because she sells this, for an order that she has to fulfill. And of course, lots of problems ensue that they need to be solved throughout the 3 stories. At the end, they will, because all stories end happily. That's one of the things that my readers love. I had letters from 2nd graders attesting to that. But the dessert, casquitos de guayaba con queso crema. So you have the recipe.
Ay.
Las recetas están incluidas.
Hambre.
And I have to add here that arañitas is something that we humans can eat too, with little spiders. So once you read the book and you'll see the recipe, you'll find out why.
Yes.
Claudia, te quedas con las arañitas, yo me quedo con los cascos de guayaba.
Yo me quedo con los pasteles.
There we go, estamos todas bien. Okay, muy bien.
Alicia has the
Okay.
next question.
Esta pregunta también es sobre Rafi Rossi. You touched on this topic a little bit, but I'll see if you have anything additional. ¿Qué esperas que los lectores hayan aprendido y sigan aprendiendo al leer cualquiera de los 5 libros?
Para mí, lo que yo espero es que se enganchen y que sigan leyendo. For me, that is important. I want them to love Rafi and Rosie, so they continue with the series and then they graduate onto longer texts and more complex texts and literary novels. And so that is one of my goals. The other goal, and doing this with books that speak to them, because, why not have books that celebrate the Latino culture at the same time? They don't, many readers, but again, it's sibling relationship, so all readers will relate to the relationship itself. The other thing that I know it happens, although it wasn't my goal precisely. I wanted them to really love reading, but I also wanted to share the beauty of the island. The island has given me so much, and I wanted Rafi and Rosie became ambassadors to the island. They are ambassadors to the beauty, to the history, to the legends, to the folktales, they are ambassadors to everything that Puerto Rico is. And for me, that was important too. So if they learn, it's funny, I didn't mention these, but I'm glad that you asked, because then I get to say that if Rafi and Rosie menu is being published, is because, I'm going to get up to show you something, is because 2nd graders from one academy in Boston, Massachusetts Public School, wrote my publisher, Leon Lowe, asking for more adventures of Rafi and Rosie. Le escribieron cartas persuasivas en inglés y en español. Y la maestra me mandó las cartas, letters with pictures and everything.
Illustrated.
Illustrated. Illustrated with their own pictures of Rafi and Rosie. And the reasons they give is, it's just, I made a list, and one of them is because they like the back and forth. One of them is they love the happy endings and how Rafi makes Rosie feel good. They help each other. And there was a little girl that says, I always learn new things. And I said, oh my God, that's beautiful.
That's what it's all about.
Wow,
Great.
what an amazing thing to receive. Even if it's one single letter from your readers, it just means well, it's always meaningful, but what a beautiful feeling that must be. So congratulations again.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Yes. Lulu, wonderful that you're bringing the series to a close happily. You are, even though they're asking you for more. But what's next for you? What are your upcoming projects that you could share with us?
Well, I don't have, I'm working on something, but I'm not going to reveal the title yet because the way that I work is I'm now delving into a nonfiction book. Again, at the crossroads of Latinx and STEM. And for me, like Olinguito de la A la Zeta is set in the cloud forest of Ecuador. Verde Fresco is a bilingual book, and it's actually a gardener that is a landscaper, a Latino landscaper that shares his knowledge of trees with his granddaughter, and it's in two versions. The same way, I'm doing something that will deal with. It will deal. I'm going to tell you just a little bit. I want to share. I don't know how much to reveal here. I don't have a contract yet, so I will
Only
say
what you're comfortable with.
I'm going to say that it's at the crossroads of Latinx and STEM, and it will highlight what we've learned and what we owe today to the gardeners that lived in ancient Latin America before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. Mm-hmm. And that period will focus on what they gifted us, the Taino, the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. And it's an amazing wealth of crops.
Oh, yes.
That I'm positive kids have no idea that more than half the food that we eat today and that they love and consume is because of this amazing
cultivated
gardeners.
by them. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds amazing already. I love some of these ancient grains, quinoa, and you name it. So I cannot wait to see what you
yes,
when you put them all together.
So far, 6 months of research.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure.
Well, you've shared a lot with us today. Thank you. I feel like we've gotten a lot of golden nuggets here. Do you have any last words or words of wisdom, if you want to call it, that you would like to leave for illustrators, bilingual writers, teachers, librarians, and or parents raising or wanting to raise bilingual children?
To parents, I will say, if you want your child to be bilingual, háblale en español. Cuando llega de la escuela y te repite todo en inglés, te lo dice, lo que vivió, te lo dice en inglés, tú se lo repites en español para asentar la lengua. So to parents, if you speak two languages, speak the language, your mother tongue. English language, they are going to learn the English language in the school. That's for sure. To educators, it is so important that children see themselves not only in the pictures, but also in the words and how the words are presented. So when you look for bilingual books, be certain that these books have been, if it's not a native writer, that they've been lovingly translated into the Spanish language. When I started, I couldn't find good Spanish translation for my own kids. So to aspiring writers and illustrators, I would say you can write a story. You can start with a sketch. You can start with a train of thought. You can start, for all, both writers and illustrators, keep a little notebook. I love this. They go in your purse. I do sketches as well as I write little snippets of things that I hear or ideas that I get when I'm looking at an exhibit. And mostly if you're already doing this, I would say go with your heart. The best books are those that you wish you had for yourself or you wish you had for your own kids. Those end up being the best sellers. You know, the proof is this book. Arroz con leche was published 35 years ago. It's still in print. When it was published as a service to the Latino community. They didn't think it would sell. It's still selling. And it's not a mainstream book. It is what they call a niche book. Of course, now there's a lot more Latinos here in the States. But what I say is that when I did it out of my heart. And every single thing that I do, there has to be something that pulls you to do that. So just follow your heart.
Hay que seguir el corazón. Muchas, muchas gracias, Lulu. Esto nos concluye lo que es la entrevista de hoy, pero tenemos 3 preguntas más. This concludes our main episode questions, but we have the 3 questions that we ask of every guest. These are rapid fire questions, and they're meant to be just very quickly, whatever comes to mind. So the very first one, what's one fact about you that even your biggest fans might not know? ¿Qué es un hecho, algo de usted que ni siquiera sus fanáticos más cercanos o más fanáticos lo saben?
Bueno, eso es mi nombre completo, pero no lo voy a revelar.
Then you're gonna leave him still unknown.
It is still unknown.
It will still be unknown. Okay, next.
Okay, next. If others were to describe you in 1, 2, or 3 words, what would those words be? ¿Qué palabras usarían para describirla? En 1 o 2 o 3 palabras.
Diminuta. Absent-minded. So short or petite, absent-minded. What else? I don't know.
Pueden ser 2, no importa. Pueden ser 2.
I think that would be it.
That would be fine. Petite and absent-minded. Okay. Prolific también es otra palabra. Prolific también es otra palabra. Pero no, muy bien. Ok, la tercera, Alicia.
La tercera. ¿Cuál libro o libros han tenido un mayor impacto en tu vida?
Libros de otras personas.
Sí.
Yo leo mucho literatura de adultos y a mí una de mis autoras favoritas es Isabel Allende. De los libros infantiles, I wasn't really exposed to a lot of literature when I was young because in Puerto Rico we didn't have public school libraries. We didn't have children's books. I didn't discover children's books until much later when I was in a graduate school in Paris, France. So, but there's one book that I remember that is still very close to my heart, and that is El Principito, The Little Prince. And I don't know that it's a children's book because it does have a lot of philosophy. It's very philosophical, and I love what it says. And every time I read it, there's different things that I learn from it. So.
Very good, very good.
And Lulu, just so you know, I think a Principito has touched so many lives. So we're with you on that one. I'm sharing on the screen your website, www.luludelacre.com, www.luludelacre.com. Is there any other way that you want our listeners to find you or connect with you besides
they can connect me there, with me there, or otherwise I'm on Instagram under Lulu.Delacre and Facebook Lulu Delacre. And yes, I'm on LinkedIn, of course, and always Lulu Delacre. So just look for any social media Lulu Delacre. I'm not on TikTok. I don't do TikTok.
Fabulous. Well, this
Perfecto.
concludes our episode today. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you so
Gracias.
much. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a todas.
In the next episode, Gloria Amezcua.